Today I've got some extremely cool hairband riffs for you to learn on guitar, but what makes this even cooler is we're going to be playing these in a progression that has the 4 magic chords. Now we're going to dive right into this lesson, but before we get into this, make sure you hang around to the end of the video for tone talk. I'm going to share my amp settings with you and how I got these tones that you're about to hear. So I'm going to go ahead and give away the secret before we jump into this. The 4 magic chords that we're playing in this progression are G, D, E minor, C. Now you can play that really in any key because it's basically a major, major, minor, major. It just sounds really cool, and heck, after you finish this lesson, you may go write a hit song. Who knows? All right, here's the first version of this progression that I want to show you. As you can see in here, we're not just playing the chords. We're not just playing power chords here. And you guys know me well enough by now to know that I like for you to move around a little bit. I mean, it's okay to play the power chords. You could just play a straight G, a straight D, and so forth. But we're moving those fingers around a little bit, and it just gives the song some more texture and a little bit more life. So basically what we're doing here, starting out, we are starting out with a regular power chord, but we're moving that second finger up, okay? And once you move that up, the first chord, for example, that G, once you move that up, you're going 3-5 to 3-3. You're actually barring those first 2 strings on the 3rd fret with your first finger there. So that's really all that movement is. You're playing a power chord, but then you're just, you're making sure you have those first 2 notes barred with that first finger, so that when you pull that one finger off, that second finger off of that second string, then you've already got your first finger there barred across those frets, the 3rd fret. And then you basically implement that same strategy when you play the D power chord. You play the D power chord, but then again, you've got the 5th fret on the 2nd and 3rd string already barred with your first finger, already tightly down there, so that when you move that second finger off, then you've already got those notes. Now for the E minor, we do the exact same thing. Now we end with the C power chord, and again, kind of the same concept in regards to us moving that finger, that second finger around a little bit. However, we're not going to be barring the notes like we did on the G and the D, right? So because of the progression that we're playing, because of the key that we're in rather, we're playing that C power chord, but your next note that you want to play is going to be the 4th fret on the 3rd string there. So you're on 2nd and 3rd string. Your normal frets for the power chord are 3 and 5, but then you're going 3 and 4. Gives it that really wicked sound, which is really cool sounding. Now, before we move on to the second version, because it's going to get cooler and cooler as we progress here, I want to show you one more way, and really it's just changing where you play one of the chords, and that's the E minor. So listen to this. All we're doing here is really using that same concept that we played on the higher E minor, right? On the 2nd and 3rd string. We're just applying that same concept, that same movement to the lower E minor there, the 1st and 2nd string. So you're playing that E minor power chord. Now to wrap up the first version here, let's play both of what we just learned. The first way, we're going to play it with the higher E minor. The second time around, I'll play it with the lower E minor. Version 2 of this really cool hairband riff with the magical chords. So now we're going to get a little bit more choppy. We're going to be moving the fingers around a little bit more, and it's going to sound like this. Now it's really the same concept of what we did in the first version I showed you. The difference is we're kind of harping on the single note structure here. So for example, when we play the G, we're not playing that entire power chord, right? We're just hitting that first note, which is the first string, 3rd fret. Just hit that single note, that 3rd fret on the 1st string. And then what we're doing is we're palm muting kind of back and forth between the 1st and 2nd string. Listen to this closely. This is the slow version. When you play it slow like that, it really simplifies things. So now let's apply that exact same thing to the D power chord that we're going to play here. Now we're going to change things up just a little bit for the E minor. We're going to play this a little bit differently and applying the same concepts. However, there's a little riff that we're going to do for the E minor here, and it sounds just like this. I'll play it slow as well. Now for the C, the last note of this progression, just combined what we learned in version 1 to what we're learning now in version 2, and that's kind of all we're doing here. Again, we're just focused on that first single note, making it a little bit more choppy with that palm muting back and forth between the 2 strings. So I'll play this slow. One more thing, just like we did in version 1, I want to play the E minor in the lower section here. So I want to go through that real quick. This is what it would sound like in the full progression here. Now here's that E minor chord a little bit slower so you can see and hear what I'm doing. Before we go to version 3, and version 3 is going to be pretty cool. Well, this has all been pretty cool so far, I hope. But let's combine these two ways together with the higher E minor and the lower E minor. In version 3 here, this final version, we're really focusing on single notes and just creating a true melody out of this progression, and this is what it sounds like. Now I hope YouTube doesn't flag me for that, because that's essentially one of the famous songs by Journey, and I'm not really trying to play that. I actually think they play it a little bit differently, and I think maybe they're in a different key. I don't know, but this is a really important lesson here because it's just getting you used to more of a single note pattern. So let's break this down in tiny bite-sized chunks, and here's how I want you to think of this pattern, because I know there's a lot of single notes there. It's almost like a giant scale, but here's how I want you to think of this pattern. Each part, right, each chord in this progression here, we're only playing 3 notes. So for the G, for example, we're only playing that G, A, B, just 3 notes, like this. When we get to the D, it's the same thing, just 3 notes. E minor, 3 notes. The C, yep, 3 notes, that's it. Now, the little trick to putting all of this together, and I'm going to play the whole thing slowly all the way through for you here, because the trick is to, after you play those 3 notes, is to quickly go over to that next starting note. So in other words, when you play those 3 notes for the G, almost immediately you're going quickly to that next chord, the first note for that next chord, which is your D. So there's kind of a little rhythmic pattern here that you just kind of have to grasp in your head as you're playing this. Now, as you may have guessed, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to change where we play the E minor, like this. Now that one's even more simple because that's just an open string 0, 2, 3. That's it. So pretty simple there. Now let's combine those 2 methods. So yeah, those are like the unicorn chords, and again, like I said earlier, you can play this progression in any key. Like for example, if I'm playing this on acoustic, what I like to play is a really nice open A, E, then F sharp minor with those last 2 strings open, and then a D. So that's just an example. Actually, I'll let you hear it. This is it. Magic formula here is the major, major, minor, major, and it just gives this really powerful emotional impact. Kind of starts out with a happy vibe at first, but then we go kind of dark and emotional with that minor chord, and then we bring it back, and it's just, I don't know, it's one of those like feel-good progressions. Now let's get into the tone talk. And by the way, real quick, I appreciate all of you guys who watched my last video, which was some clean guitar riffs in the key of E minor. I'll put it up there if you hadn't seen that yet, but I did a quick tone talk at the end of the video, and then I asked you guys if you'd like for me to continue doing that, and I was just so surprised and overwhelmed by how many of you watched that entire video to get to that point to answer me in the comments, yeah Jason, please do the tone talk. So here we are, tone talk again. Now let's turn around to my EVH amp. I am using my EVH for this lesson here. Now I'm using the blue channel, and for those of you who aren't familiar with EVH, there's a green, there's a blue, and then there's a red. So your red's like your fire breathing gain, green of course is clean, your blue channel's kind of in the middle. And to me, for this particular EVH model, this is one with the EL34 tubes, the blue channel almost gives you kind of like that almost a Marshall style sound, in the sense that even with the gain cranked up, you still kind of need a booster if you're playing sort of heavy, because you've got some of those low end frequencies that it produces there. And I think the channel is designed to do that, to give you that diversity, to have that type of gain, as opposed to having everything just full on distortion like the red channel. So this is one of the reasons why I picked this particular amp, because of the diversity, and I can just create all kinds of sounds and tones. So anyway, the blue channel, you'll see I've got my gain cranked up quite a bit. Okay, the gain's cranked up, but again, the blue channel, even with the gain cranked all the way up, it's really not that it's not that saturated. Okay, So let's take a look at my bass. My bass, I rolled it back a little bit because, again, you know, this channel specifically seems to be a little boomy sounding, if that makes sense. There's some low end frequencies that come with that. And again, I think this is by design for this particular channel. Now my mids, because of the style of music we're playing, this more of like, you know, I said hair band, not hair metal, which they kind of coincide and cross over. But I'm going for more of a hair band rock sound. So I've got my mids cranked up a bit. Me personally, when I'm playing metal, I like to cut my mids a little bit. I just prefer that sound, maybe it's because I'm old school. But for a rock sound and a hairband sound in this case, I like to crank those mids up just a hair. Now my highs are a little bit more than what I normally set them for my distortion channels, okay? If we go over to the presence, for this particular amp, I've usually got my presence cut to about 4. Here I've got it about 4.5. Now I know that's not a substantial difference, but in this case, with what I'm playing, the style of music and the amp, that presence setting just bumping up just a hair actually makes a pretty big difference in tone. And for everything you heard in this video, I actually mic'd this amp with a Shure SM57. So I recorded that in PreSonus Studio One, and then of course I had to sync the audio and the video together for all the guitar parts. So I do a lot of work for you guys, but I think it's worth it. Now, a little magical piece here. For this tone, for hairband and rock sounds, you know, you really wouldn't think I would be using any kind of overdrive or distortion pedal or anything like that. However, I do have my MXR Classic Distortion plugged in, but I've got the distortion all the way down, as you can see here. Now my output's a little more than halfway. I've got it probably 6.5 here. And my tone's pretty much up the middle, a little on the high side. But again, I've got my distortion all the way down. And what that does, it just takes some of that kind of nasty bottom end out of this channel. Now, if I were playing something a little bit lighter, like maybe Southern rock or country, and I just wanted some grit, I probably wouldn't use that pedal, and I might even back the gain off on the amp a little bit and just, of course, crank the volume up so you get that, you know, you get more of that tube saturation, that natural saturation that comes with that. So that's just something I'd probably do if I were playing a different style. But in this case, I wanted a little bit of edge, but I wanted that edge to be kind of clean, right? So I used this classic distortion pedal just to clean it up a little bit. Now the other thing real quick, and this has a lot to do with the tone that you heard. I'm using my Ibanez RG 1570, this Ibanez Prestige here. And I think you guys know, you probably saw the video, I'll put it up here where I changed out my pickups here. I had the stock pickups, the V7, V8, and S1. I changed them out with DiMarzio's, and this is the DiMarzio. This is the Tone Zone. This is the HS2 or something like that, the single coil, and then the neck pickup is the Air Norton. They are passive pickups. Okay, I'm not using active pickups here, and that just gives you kind of more of a hairband style tone, in my opinion, because if you're using active pickups, well, you've got more boost and more saturation, and that's kind of getting more into the hard rock and heavy metal styles. So for this particular lesson, for this particular style, I prefer passive pickups because it just gives you a different type of tone, and to me it just kind of fits the hairband style music and kind of that poppy rock style a little bit better. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that you can't use a guitar with active pickups to play the style of music. You certainly can, and if that's what you have, and of course I encourage you to do that, but I like to just have a guitar with active pickups and also one with passive pickups as well. So guys, let me know in the comments if this lesson helped you. I hope you had fun playing through this lesson, man, because it's a really cool progression. Again, it's the 4 magical chords. Now you can go write a hit song after this, but leave me a comment if you have any questions, or just let me know this lesson helped you. And also, of course, if you have questions about the tone talk, please leave a comment on that as well. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Until next time, keep it metal. Or today we're keeping it hairband.